Hey students, I've been getting a few emails on how to do this last skill that was on your review for sketching graphs from factor to function. So I wanted to do a brief video on how you should do this. This tends to be the most missed problem on the test, and so I want to make sure that you understand how to do this. Now, when you take your test, and I would recommend this for your review as well, use some graph paper and graph this on graph paper first, because the way that I taught you, when you enter it on Delta Math, you're going to have to graph it all in one swipe. But when you're graphing it on graph paper, you can do each section at a time, and so that'll make it easier for you. The first thing that you have to do anytime you're sketching a polynomial is you have to take those factors and figure out what your x-intercepts are or what your roots are. And the way you're going to do that is by setting them equal to 0. So I'm going to take that first one and set it equal to 0. I'm going to take the second one, set it equal to 0. And I'm going to take the third one and set it equal to 0. And so we're going to figure out what that is. Well, when I set this first one equal to 0, I would have to add 2 to the other side. So this would be at positive 2. So you're going to have an x-intercept at positive 2. The second factor, when I set that one equal to 0, you would subtract 3. So that's going to give you x equals negative 3. And so you'll have another x-intercept at negative 3. Then when you do x plus 1 equals 0, you'd have to subtract 1. And so that would give you a negative 1, and that would be your third x-intercept, or your third root. At that point, I want you to figure out what's happening on the right side, and that's going to come from your leading coefficient. So the right side is determined by your leading coefficient. So what I taught you to do was to take, all we care about is whether it's positive or negative. So take the signs of each one. So you're going to have, change colors here. So here you're going to have a negative. Here you're going to have a positive, and a positive, and a positive. So we have positives and one negative, and so that's going to multiply together to give us a negative. So the leading coefficient is negative. That means on the right side it's going to go down. So when I look on this graph, the right x-intercept is going to go down. So you're just going to sketch down. Now, one thing that I also want you to notice is if it has a power of 1, so this one right here has a power of 1. When it has a power of 1, it's going to go through the x-axis. Well, that's where that x-intercept comes from. This is x equals 2, and it goes through the x-axis, so this is going to just go straight through it. Okay? Now, if you have a power of 2, so this one right here is a power of 2, and so that's when x equals negative 3, that's going to bounce. So we're going to do that when we get to that x-intercept. It's going to come up to the x-intercept or down, depending on which direction it's coming from, and it's just going to bounce off of it. So it's not going to go through it, it's going to bounce off of it. This one has a power of 1 as well, and so this one will just go through. So we'll do that when we get to it. Okay, now the other thing that you will need to find is the y-intercept. So let's figure out what that is. So the y-intercept can be found when you plug in 0 for your x and then solve it for y. So I would have a 0 here, I would have a 0 here, and I would have a 0 here. Okay, so let's write down what that would be. So I'd have negative 2 times 0 minus 2 is negative 2 as well, times 0 plus 3 is 3, and then I'm going to square it, and then 0 plus 1 is 1. So I need to multiply all of those together. Well, 3 squared is 9. 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. And then negative 18 times a negative 2 would be a positive 36. So my y-intercept is at 0, 36. Sorry, my handwriting's terrible, but this is really hard to write with your mouse. Okay, so I am going to have a y-intercept at approximately 36, so it's going to be approximately there. So what's going to happen is this is going to continue to come up, it's going to cross there, and it's going to come down and hit this x-intercept at -1, and so it's going to go through it, and then it's going to have to come back up. And at -3, remember, it bounces. So it comes up and it bounces off of it and then goes back down. Okay, now let's double check, because the degree determines what happens on the left side. The degree, all we care about is it positive, is it the same? Let me start over. Is the degree even or is it odd? So that you're going to count your exponents. So you've got 1, then you've got a 2, so 1 plus 2 is 3, then you've got another 1, which is 4, so that would be a degree of 4, which is even. And remember, even makes the left side do the same thing, and so the left side's going to go down. And you can see from your graph that that's what happened as well. So once you get all of that graphed, then now on Delta Math, what they want you to do is they just want you to graph it in one swipe. So after you graph it on paper, now you should be able to graph it on the computer pretty easily. So I'm just going to come up and I'm going to trace it using Delta Math. Come up and hit that y-intercept, and then come down. When I release it, it'll put arrows on it, and then now I can check my answer. And it's correct. So again, the purpose is just to be able to get it to look, to sketch the graph. All right, hopefully that was helpful. Again, just make sure that you graph it on paper first. That'll be the best way to do this. Good luck tomorrow. I miss seeing y'all.